Now let's imagine we need to photograph our Angelica for a fashion shoot. Hi, welcome from the set for this short lesson on lighting. My name is Francesco. I'm an advertising photographer, and I teach lighting technology and visual communication. Today I'm here to talk to you about lighting in photography, and how light is not just meant to illuminate well, but rather to characterize the subject and create atmosphere. A photographer today also means being the director of photography for their own set. So, by direction of photography, we mean the art of writing with light, being the authors of our own lighting. And this is more important today than ever, to create our style in photography. When we talk about managing light, we imagine a photography studio with lots of lights, like the ones you see behind me. In reality, a lighting scheme is not a recipe. And it's not just a graphic representation of how these lights are arranged. But let me give you an example right away. Here, we were in a room where we set up lighting schemes to create a fashion editorial. There are so many lights, because based on advertising needs, we had to illuminate not just the scene and the subject, but also add some effect lights. So, rim lights that would highlight the jewelry and accessories, like the model's handbag, to enhance its texture and brightness. But now I want to show you a studio portrait. In this image, I created the famous Rembrandt lighting pattern, named after the Dutch painter Rembrandt, who illuminated his subjects using light coming from a window, positioned to the side and above the subject. In this case, I created this light using a studio light. In this image, on the other hand, I used the same lighting scheme by employing natural light coming from a window, and I lightened the shadows using the candle lights. In this scene, I certainly couldn't move the lights, but by positioning the subject, I created the famous triangle of light on the shadowed part of the face. This is to help you understand that when we create a lighting scheme, we shouldn't just consider the position of the lights, but we need to actually create a certain graphic of shadows on the subject's face. But before I talk to you about the technique I use to measure and control the light to get the photo, just as I envisioned it from the very first shot on the camera, I want to talk to you about the criteria we use to choose which light to use to characterize our subject and the scene. In these two images, for example, the choice of the lighting scheme, it wasn't simply dictated by the type of atmosphere I wanted to create for my subject, but rather by the constraining background. In fact, I found myself during the day in a setting that wasn't exactly ideal, and I wanted to completely eliminate the background, simulating the light of a street lamp during the day. So by creating a nighttime scenario through light, to help you understand how, through light, we can completely transform our scene and use creativity to imagine completely different scenarios from those that lie ahead of us. In other cases, however, the choice of how to light our subject depends on aesthetic criteria that may relate to the subject's features. And the dress she is wearing in this fashion photograph, I took advantage of the sun's position at zenith to create light, perpendicular to the subject in a way that maximizes the texture of this wedding dress. The choice of lighting was also made to create the panda effect that you see in the model's eyes. This would be a serious mistake in other types of portraits. But here it was done intentionally to give a more mysterious and haunting atmosphere to the gaze of this mermaid, evoking a bit the mythological figure of this being that somehow enchanted sailors with her song. As you might have understood, there are many variables that underlie the choice of a lighting system. But now let's move on to a concrete example here on the photo set. Now let's imagine we need to photograph our Angelica for a fashion shoot. To choose the lighting scheme, I shouldn't just consider the type of atmosphere I want to create, Angelica. But I need to analyze her dress, which has a special feature at the back, where there's this bow. And these volumes need to be highlighted in some way through lighting. Now I'll show you various lighting schemes we can use to illuminate this dress to create completely different images from one another. I placed Angelica completely in shadow against a black background with a black dress. A typical example to show you how sometimes there are extremely influencing factors regarding the choices we have to make. I decided to use an 85mm lens, mounted on a Nikon ZF to create a black and white image. To show you the result, just as I imagined it, I'll switch directly to black and white mode using the function button. Here, on the Nikon ZF, first I'm going to create a light on the background. This beam of light allows me to separate the shape, the outline of the subject from the background. And here it is. My main light, a side light relative to the subject created with a gridded strip box that illuminates the entire figure. Through this grazing light, but slightly diffused. Through this grid, I'm channeling the light exclusively onto the subject without contaminating the background, which is something a regular softbox would do. I'm going to create three-dimensionality both on Angelica's body and on the outfit she's wearing. So I'm characterizing my photography through two fundamental elements of visual communication. The silhouette is outlined thanks to the background light, and the shape, the volume, thanks to this split diffused light that cuts the body of our model in two as we get into the technical part. Now I'm going to create my lighting ratios, so the balances of the lights. Regarding the exposure, I chose to shoot at f2.8, and I'm measuring the light on the background at ISO 800 1/60th of a second. I have it at f8, a light that is 3 stops higher than my exposure. But these 3 extra stops are actually absorbed by the background itself, being black. So in the central area, I'll have a medium gray of 18%. If I want a light that is consistent with Angelica's actual skin tones, I need to set this light to f2.8. I'm at f4. I'm going to take away this stop of light, so I'm going to halve it to align the light with the exposure. I've taken 1 stop off my light, and now I'm at f2.8, so the photo is practically done. But let's go ahead and take the shot. Face in profile. Gently and slowly lower your chin, eyes closed carefully. Perfect. In the first shot, my image appears on the camera exactly as I imagined it. Second shot, full figure. I'm now going to use an effect light, a rim light, to create a shape line that highlights the features of the face. I'm going to create my rim light. Now let's give another interpretation to the same outfit. Through the main light, I illuminate the entire figure, while with this spotlight, I create a beam of light focused exclusively on the dress, such. To give three-dimensionality to the details that characterize it. In this case, I'm also going to adjust my light, chin down slightly, eyes closed. I shot at f2 ISO 800 to give less depth of field and focus more on the dress. Compared to the previous shot, the dress takes center stage through the use of light. But now let's create a third lighting setup for another interpretation of this outfit, using just one light and a translucent panel. Taking advantage of the typical backlighting for a silhouette, I'm going to create a semi-silhouette. In this case, I'm going to give more importance to the face and the features of the subject rather than the outfit. As you may have understood from these examples, managing light in photography isn't just about illuminating, it's about characterizing it. Regardless of the photographic genre, every photographer should have a perfect understanding of lighting in photography. So if you want to improve your photography and create your own style, and learn a method that allows you to manage light in any condition, by connecting live through a multicam setup, you'll be able to see the set from all angles, including the perspective of my camera. I'll explain it to you. So step by step, the method to create perfect lighting and get the photo, just like you imagined it in the first shot, without having to try and without necessarily resorting to post-production. I hope you enjoyed this mini lesson on lighting techniques and that it might be useful for some creative ideas. That said, I won't wish you good light, because we create good light ourselves.